I'm Hemant Mehta.
And I'm Jessica Bluemke.
And you're listening to the podcast for FriendlyAtheist.com. You can now listen to all of our episodes and see show notes at FriendlyAtheistPodcast.com. A few weeks ago, I was listening to Alex Blumberg's popular podcast Startup, which is all about his journey beginning his own podcasting company. In one episode, he aired a conversation with Trevor McKendrick, an atheist who was making quite a bit of money selling a Bible app for your phone. So, we had to talk to him ourselves. So Trevor is here with us today. Trevor, how are you?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, guys.
So I guess first and foremost, it's important to point out that the reason we're speaking to you is that you're an atheist who made a Bible app. I'm sure you're by no means the only person who's created a Bible app. Why? Why
am I an atheist, or why did I make a Bible app?
I guess those are both fair questions. Why did you decide to make a Bible app as an atheist?
So at the time, I wasn't, a true blue through and through atheist, and even now, I teeter between, being agnostic and atheist. But when I decided to make the app, this was back in, I launched it in April of 2012. I was kind of on the cusp of leaving Mormonism. I've been brought up in a really kind of strict Mormon home. I'd gone on a Mormon mission to Mexico. I got married in a Mormon temple. And so I was kind of like getting out of the faith. I was still in transition, so it didn't feel like I was doing this I wasn't building a product that kind of opposed my view system at the time. And it was just for me, it was just like a business opportunity, and it happened to, kind of fit my skill set with the Spanish, and I kind of just went for it. I didn't even consider, I didn't even know it was going to be that big. Right?
And to be clear, this is a Spanish language Bible app, correct?
That's correct.
So one of the things I found really fascinating is that on your website, and we'll provide a link in the show notes for this, you're very open, which I love, about how much money you've made about it, when people are buying it, how people are buying it. Like, you talked about your first year in the App Store, your second year in the App Store. I'm curious, what are the trends you have found in terms of when people are buying your app, or maybe if you know why they're buying it or anything like that?
That's a great question. And honestly, one of the hard parts about doing business in the App Store is that Apple doesn't give you a lot of that information. But the few trends that I can speak to are that January is our best month of sales.
That would have been my guess, because people do things in January.
Like a New Year's resolution, yeah. I'm going to read the Bible.
Exactly. I assume it's the same as like the gym crowd.
Right.
Yeah.
Just with religion, spirituality. A lot of people think that like December is a big month for us, and it's an okay month, but it's not our best. We don't see like this huge peak around Christmas or Easter or anything like that. And frankly, the vast majority, and this is kind of the reason for the success of the app, is the vast majority of the people that find us do it because they're searching in the App Store. They open the app in the App Store, and they search for La Biblia or La Biblia Reina Valera, which is a version of the Bible, and we rank really, really well for those phrases. For La Biblia, the Bible, we're number 2. After this huge 100 million download company that's number 1. So that's kind of the reason for the success of the app.
Just out of curiosity, what is it that what makes your Bible app so good? Because it's clearly not just, hey, we translated the Bible into Spanish. Or
for the first time ever.
Yeah, right. It's been done before. So what makes your app so special?
Yeah, so the whole idea from the beginning was, let's do something that caters entirely to native Spanish speakers. And what I mean by that is all the other apps, the vast majority of the of the Spanish language Bible apps in the App Store are English apps that have been the programmer phrases localized into Spanish, right? So if you are in the U.S. on an iPhone from the U.S. and the language on your phone is English, because that's how you bought it, when you look in the App Store, all of the Bibles are going to be in English. Right? And because that's the way the apps are made. They're made first in English and then ported to Spanish. Versus me, it doesn't matter. For our app, it's all in Spanish no matter where you are, no matter what the settings are on your phone. So if you are in the U.S. or in a Latin American country or anywhere in the world, if you search for our app, all of the marketing's in Spanish. The app is always in Spanish. Our website is only in Spanish. Our email messages are only in Spanish. Everything is catered to native Spanish speakers versus kind of treat them like as second-class citizens as they're prone to be treated in the U.S. as far as businesses are concerned.
So let's get to the.
That makes sense.
That does make
totally.
sense. I can see why that would be appealing to a lot of people who probably don't have anywhere else to go, or that the apps that they buy, if they wanted a Spanish language Bible app, probably aren't catered. Like you said, they aren't catered to their needs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Are you getting people buying it from countries you may not expect? Because I'm sure those are numbers you do get.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I honestly don't even keep track of all the different countries that people download the app from at this point. I mean, dozens and dozens of various countries where you would assume that not a soul speaks Spanish. It's the Middle East, it's in Africa, it's all over. I mean, it's not a lot. I mean, we're talking like a handful of downloads here and there, but it's downloaded by people everywhere.
Do you ever feel, I don't think guilty is the right word, but do you ever feel odd or off-put about making a good amount of money?
Conflicted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And well, I should say I used to feel more conflicted. So the times when I feel the quote unquote worst is when I get emails from people asking for me to, for example, like pray for. I had someone asked me to pray for their uncle because he was sick, he was in the hospital or something, or pray for my child, or sometimes like people asking to me like to interpret Bible verses for them. And so those moments I don't feel really good because then I realize that, well, I've always known this, but it makes it it brings it home where people are really looking for kind of solutions to big problems, to almost unsolvable problems through the Bible and through Christianity. And
they're not
frankly,
just downloading your app for the hell of reading the Bible. They need it.
Yeah, they're looking to something. Exactly. And so those kind of moments are off-putting, I guess you could say. And so I'll return the email and say, I'm not a priest or I'm not a pastor. You should go talk to your local congregation.
Right.
And so those moments are kind of like, oh, that sucks to kind of that speaks to the the problems of the human experience, I think, more than anything. Yeah. But they don't see it that way, right? They're looking. I mean, if the problem is if you're, these people they can't be too destitute because they own an iPhone. But that said, if you're emailing some random app maker on the App Store to get help for your son or daughter, like you're probably not in the best place. And so that weighs on me a little bit. But frankly, I don't know if this is good or bad. I actually don't read those emails anymore. Just because it was, I get a lot of emails for random things, not just that kind of stuff. And I just kind of archive them and don't see them anymore.
That I get some similar emails too from people, and you kind of have to gauge, is this person someone I need to respond to? Because they'll criticize things I've written or opinions I've had, and it's like, if I think you're genuinely asking me a question that I could answer, all right, I'll respond to you. If I think you're just trying to do a drive-by preaching or something, or you need help that I'm not the guy you should be asking, I file them away.
Well, Trevor, I think it's interesting that you get emails. Like, I can understand somebody writing to, like, you, Hammond, or even I've gotten a couple of emails because they listen to us talk and, like, feel like they have a relationship.
Right.
But with due respect, it's not, you're the guy who created their app. It surprises me that they're like, this guy is the one I need to talk to,
I'm right there with you. That's what I'm saying. It's like, if emailing me is, if they've gotten to that, plan X on their to-do, on their checklist of help, then they're probably not doing too well. Or maybe they're just like, hey, I'm right here in the Bible and I'll email him. And it's because you can access that from the app. Mm-hmm. But I kind of tend to think towards the former.
Sure. Wait, when they're emailing you, do they know they're emailing in like Trevor, or are they emailing like
the
podcast?
Bible app guy?
Well, so my email does pop up. It does go to trevor@salemsoftware.org.
Okay.
But that said, from a lot of the emails that I get from these users, it would appear that most aren't super tech savvy.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't even see the email address and they just started typing and sent it.
Wow,
They're looking for help anywhere they can get.
I know, that's really interesting. That would be
Sad.
really,
I mean,
like really low on the, again, no offense, really low on the people I would email for help.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, that's
Yeah, I mean, I brought it up. It's fine. It's true.
So the reason, like we said in the intro, the reason we heard about you is on Alex Blumberg's podcast. Can you tell us how that even happened? How did he get in touch with you or vice versa?
Yeah, so the podcast tweeted out they were looking to talk to other entrepreneurs, kind of hear their stories. And I really liked the podcast, and I was like, all right, I'll email them. And so I sent them like this, 4-line email. It started off with, I'm a Bible salesman, sort of. And then, and emailed them, and I kind of forgot about it. And then randomly, I don't know, a week or so later, one of their producers, Caitlin, emailed me and was like, hey, we like your story. We want to hear more. And I was like, oh, all right, cool. And so she and I talked on the phone kind of for about 20 minutes, not recorded. She was kind of just screening me.
yeah.
And at the end, she was like, hey, we'd love for Alex to interview you. And she set up a time, and so Alex Blumberg and I Skyped for about 45 minutes. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, I've been a big fan of it. I listened to This American Life and the whole thing. So it was a lot of fun. I recorded the whole conversation, so I have that kind of for posterity.
Yeah.
This is like the peak of my career. I can look back in this moment.
Well, I've listened to the Startup podcast too, and it's a fantastic story of how he began his podcasting company. And it's interesting to hear the progression of his business. And I know my ears kind of, perked up when I heard your story as well. And I imagine a lot of people heard it, not just atheists, but anyone who heard it, and they're like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm wondering, what was the reaction? So what happened after that episode aired?
So and I just want to say, first of all, it's good. I'm glad to hear that you liked it and people liked it, because when I'm listening to his podcast, I'm like, I don't want to hear about other people. I want to hear about like Alex Blumberg's company. I was like, man, if they're putting me on it, I don't know, maybe they're jumping the shark. So that's good to hear. But anyway, so the reaction. So frankly, from the podcast, the reaction was good. People, I mean, I was frankly surprised by, because I live right now in Salt Lake City, Utah. I went to BYU. It's a Mormon school out here, and
we're familiar.
Most of my friends are Mormon, and so the reaction from most people was surprisingly good. Like, oh, hey, I love your story, and that I didn't have too many complaints, and I don't think people who like were super angry are going to reach out very much. Mm-hmm. So it's there's kind of some selection bias there, but that was from the podcast, and then I don't know, a week or 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, it blew up because Business Insider basically wrote a summary of the podcast.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah. So I sound like you guys saw that. So that.
The headline for that story was like a very clickbaity headline, like "Meet the atheist Bible salesman who made a lot of money."
We thought this was a regular Bible app
Insider's
until we
entire
found out.
business model.
That's their business model. Yeah.
And so they wrote about it, and then I guess they like syndicate their content or something, because that got picked up by literally like thousands of other, no-name blogs. And then from that, they aired like a 2-minute bit on like Fox News in the morning. And so that was like, oh my
what did they
gosh,
say?
like so much attention and the whole thing. Yeah. So anyways, to answer your original question, the reaction has been mostly positive. Like the Fox News people, they posted the bit to their Facebook page twice, and so it has like tens of thousands of comments and likes and the whole thing. And so so reading through some of those, I was a little nervous. But honestly, if I could summarize the main like Christian reaction, it was that God works in mysterious ways, and he's, this atheist doesn't realize that God's working through him to distribute his Bible to more people. So
no, I think you realize that exactly. You're doing exactly
if that's that. And so if that's like the average reaction, I'm like, I'll take that. Like I can work with that, I guess.
Yeah, as far as internet trolls go, that's not too bad.
Right.
Yeah, and I got a couple. One really nasty email in particular. But overall, it was much better. My wife isn't. I mean, is unsure about where she stands, and so she was kind of nervous about all this getting out. And she ended up being mostly fine with everything. So I guess that's a good gauge.
What about on the other side? Like, it sounds like Christians were more or less okay with it because I think they're probably fine anytime anyone's doing anything with the Bible. They're like, cool. What about on the other side? Have you gotten any pushback from like atheists or non-believers who are like, you shouldn't be peddling this crap?
Well, I'm waiting I was like, what's the angle of this interview?
Gotcha.
We're coming to get you.
Yeah. Honestly, so I have like hypotheses about why, but honestly, non-believers have been very positive. Like what's the big deal? He's making a better product. Yeah. They're going to get it from another source anyway. Like, non-believers have been super nice about it. And maybe that's just because we got to kind of like stick together. Is kind of my hypothesis, but I haven't heard a single person say, of an atheist or non-believer say, anything towards the contrary.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I like you said, it's if they're not going to get it from you, they're going to get it from somewhere. And again, I don't think what you're doing is proselytizing. You're selling a product that's out there, and you're making it better. And that, to me, is very different than saying, hey, the Bible is literally true, or anything like that. That would disturb me, but you're not doing that.
But on that same note, like, Hammett, you and I have gotten pushback for having, like, conservative people or pro-life people on this show.
Right.
People say, like, why are you giving them... Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Just to interview them, because it's a very interesting conversation to us to talk to people who we totally disagree with.
And we think it's an important part of the show, because otherwise we're just, like, how many conversations with you can you have with people who agree with you?
Right.
Like, it gets old fast. But
I totally agree. There's a similar podcast for Mormonism where they'll bring up people kind of on both sides, and those are always much more fascinating, and it kind of keeps you, I don't know, on your toes is the right phrase, but kind of makes you somewhat more intellectually honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you just keep like patting your team on the back, you kind of like forget why you got to that position to begin with.
No, I couldn't agree with you more on that.
Let me go back to something you said earlier. So you talked about your Mormon upbringing and going to BYU and a mission trip and everything. So what did lead you out of your faith?
So, and it was a mission trip. So it was just for the record, it was a 2-year mission. It was long.
Right. Yes. The typical, like, you're 19.
Clarify.
Yeah. Is this when you're like 18 or 19 and you go on your 2-year trip?
Yeah. 19 to 21.
Okay.
Yep.
Where'd you go?
I was in a place called Oaxaca, Mexico, down in southern Mexico.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. I'm glad I did it. It was a fascinating cultural experience, if nothing else. I'm forgetting what the original question was.
So how did that end up leading you out of it? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd always had questions and doubts and concerns about Mormonism, from like my teenage years on up. But I was always... I wanted Mormonism to be true. Frankly, even now, I kind of still wish I want Mormonism to be true. I'd love to be wrong, right? And so from that desire, and I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and I didn't even know leaving was like an option. I didn't really consider it. I wanted to go back to BYU, is where all my friends were, and so it was like so scary that I just didn't even consider it. A couple years after my mission, I think a junior at BYU, I had come to this is 2008. I come to the conclusion that Mormonism was wrong. I didn't believe it anymore, and I kind of started telling people. But it's like impossible to have a social life at BYU if you don't believe.
Oh yeah.
And so I basically ended up justifying staying, saying that even if it's wrong, there's it teaches good things. People have good families because of Mormonism and that whole kind of narrative. And I did that for I think around 3 more years until 2 things happened. One is my younger brother, who's 7 years younger than me, decided to leave. I mean, I had no idea that he had doubts or concerns.
Wow.
So we talked a lot about that. And then number 2 was I got married, which removed the social motivations and incentives to kind of be active and attend church. And so all of a sudden I had because a lot of, well, Mormon church is just so boring. It's 3 hours every Sunday. Even a lot of active Mormons will agree with that. It's just awful. And so, I didn't have any more reason to put up going to that anymore. And I had kind of some support, or at least, a comrade with my brother. And so I finally just realized that was like, oh my gosh, I haven't really believed this whole time, but I just never knew that I could leave. And all of a sudden when it was like, I realized it was an option and the downsides were minimized, I was like, and I was gone. I was like, not even looking back.
They're actually at BYU. I've heard stories. There are underground like LGBT groups and underground atheist groups that they hide, because if they were found out, I mean, BYU, right? BYU could expel them. Trevor, if I may ask, is your wife, how'd you meet her? Was it through the church though, or was it somewhere else?
Totally. Of course. Yeah. I mean, the classic BYU relationship story is you meet in, one of the wards or the congregations are called wards. So, and they're all, it's actually organized really well, where the apartment complexes around you all go to the same church at the same time. And so there's this kind of social reinforcement of going to church with the people you live with. But anyway, so we were in the same congregation, and we met at BYU. And this sounds ridiculous, but she ended up going on a Mormon mission herself. And I wouldn't say I entirely waited for her, but we wrote the whole time, right? Mm-hmm. And when she got back, I ended up moving back to Utah because she still had school to finish, so that we could continue dating, and eventually we got married. But yeah, we met at as a regular vanilla BYU couple. No,
I'm not surprised by that at all. Mm-hmm. But then, is your atheism a problem in the relationship, or is she still part of the church, or is she left as well?
So I don't know how to describe it. It's not. It's gone, I would say, much better than most kind of split couples who leave. Yeah. But kind of how I alluded to earlier, she doesn't know where she stands, mm-hmm. and so she stopped going to church. She doesn't wear her Mormon temple garments anymore. We don't read like the Bible or the Book of Mormon or anything like that. But at the same time, she's told me, and she tells other people this, that she's chosen her marriage over her religious, or over a religion.
Yeah.
And so, to be honest, a lot of people in the LDS church don't really care whether it's true. They're just it's like incidental to them. They like the social aspects. Yeah. They like the purpose that it gives. A lot of reasons that people attend any religion.
She's a cultural Mormon more than anything else, it seems.
Oh, totally. That's exactly how she was. And so now that she's kind of, I've said, this is where I stand. This is what I want to do. And she's chosen to kind of be with me, but it's not, and it scares me a little bit, because it's not for her reasons. It's just kind of to keep the marriage together. And so it's, right now things are mostly okay, but it's like when we have kids, is that going to help make up her mind? Is she going to go back to church? And, there's, it's made, my in-laws are sad and my parents are kind of sad. And so that's been hard. But for the most part, when I compare our relationship to other split couples, I feel like we're doing above average.
Is that fairly common? Split couples, you said? You've kind of referenced that a couple times. Is that
among
people
Mormons?
Among Mormons. Is that people you know, or is it like an online thing that you reach out to other people?
Yeah, it's kind of just word of mouth. But yeah, I'm in a Facebook group for I guess split couples is the best way to describe them, where one spouse still attends or takes the kids and the other doesn't believe anymore, and everyone's just kind of talking about how to keep the relationship together, how to make it work. So it's common enough that I have friends who, that I know that they don't believe, but their wife doesn't know that they don't believe, right? Because it's a relationship. It's a potentially relationship ending discovery.
Right.
I might be overplaying it a little bit, but it's not too much to say that coming out as not believing Mormon is almost like coming out as being like gay.
Right.
Right.
We've had a lot of discussions on this podcast with people who've written about split marriage couples when it comes to religion. Yeah. And like they said, and your story kind of falls in line with that, if she was still a hardcore Mormon and you were an atheist, that might be, like you said, a relationship ending sort of thing. But if she's a cultural Mormon where she's still not exactly sure, she kind of likes the social aspect, but it's not about the beliefs of Mormon, people, then you can get past that. That's not an issue until you have kids. But then you got to start having some real conversations.
But I think also the fact that like you guys, Mormonism, first of all, is like such a huge cultural. This is me speaking from just like secondhand knowledge, but it's such a cultural thing that's ingrained in everything. It's not you go to church Sunday once a week and then kind of leave it.
Then who cares the rest of the week?
Right. And also like you live in Salt Lake City, it's kind of inundated everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're totally right. Like Mormonism is not a Sunday thing. It's a way of life.
Right.
And that's not understating it at all. And so, it's funny that you mentioned that. We're actually I literally, before I got on here, posted to Twitter and Facebook, we're actually moving to Austin, Texas.
Oh, awesome.
You're going to be all right.
Are you sarcastic or serious?
No, I'm very serious. You're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm
going to
in
Austin.
Texas. I can see it going both ways. But
no, Austin's not really Texas. You're fine.
That's what I'm hoping. That's what I've been told. So anyway, so like with that move, she's like, well, when I go to Austin, I want to go to church, or like to a church. And I was like, well, really? Like, what kind of church? She's like, I don't know. I just want to make friends. Because like literally, that's the only way we know how to make friends is by going to church. It's really this weird thing. And so I'm like, well, maybe we can go to like a humanist I don't know what you call it, gathering.
There are actually some really big humanist congregations isn't exactly the right word, but communities for sure. Yeah. Then there are some big ones in Austin because
we'll give you names.
Yeah, we'll give you names if you want. When you're in Texas more than in Utah, you kind of need those islands to kind of get away because, like Jessica said, you're so inundated with religion when you're in Utah, and when you're in Texas, everything is so religious and big and red and all that sort of thing that you kind of need those places you can go to where everyone around you isn't super religious and they're not out to proselytize everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to send me, those communities, that would
be done.
Awesome.
We're writing notes right now.
So one of the things that I noticed with all the coverage of your story, all the coverage I've seen, including the Business Insider piece you mentioned, it's been so focused on how much money you've made from the app and stuff. And actually, the story that I haven't heard anywhere is that you're kind of publicly coming out as an atheist, and I don't know if that's the first time that's happened for you, but I imagine that may be a more troublesome issue than anything else because your Mormon family, extended family, the people you grew up with, went to college with, that's got to be the most surprising part for some of the people who may not know that aspect of your life. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, you're a good interviewer because no one has really talked about...
Jessica, pay up.
I'm writing it down.
So when I emailed, the startup podcast, I knew what their audience was. I knew what the demographics were, right? Like I knew kind of who I was exposing my beliefs to.
Right.
And then when it got picked up by Business Insider and Fox News, it was like, oh wow, I have no control over this anymore. Mm-hmm. And so it was it did get out further than I wanted it to. Most people, I've had a couple of old friends from high school and BYU reach out to me, and they don't mention like the religious part, but they say, congrats on the app or good job, and that's been actually really gratifying. It's been really fun to hear from people. And so I know some people have had questions about me over the years, and I'm sure obviously this kind of answered it rather dramatically for them. But I'm kind of glad that it's out there. It's kind of just like, I don't want to, like, why does it have to be this like hidden thing? Like, why can't people just know about it and so be it? Like it's
very freeing.
Preach.
It is. And I am worried about the atheist label. I think still has a very negative connotation in the U.S. and so that kind of, as far as like career, concerns me a little bit. And now if you Google my name, it's all you see.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I totally hear you on that because like I come, Kevin and I do this, and so I leave work an hour early once a month. And if you Google my name, the first thing that comes up is like friendly atheist, whatever. But I'm still like, people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, go to the suburbs. Why? Podcasting? What about? Nothing. Don't worry about it, work friends. It's very strange.
We've heard that story a lot too, where anyone who's publicly atheist online, the job prospects is a big concern about coming out because they can maybe deal with the social issues with their family and friends because they just won't tell people if it affects them. but they are worried about being Googled by
God.
a date or by a potential boss and that being off-putting. But I imagine if you're an app developer, you can be more independent, maybe, and so it won't affect you as much.
I mean, for right now, yeah, but I mean, I have a lot of life ahead of me,
Right.
and this app isn't going to last forever,
Right.
So, but I mean, I'll figure it. I'm not super worried. It's just kind of, it's what happens when you draw a line in the sand for almost any topic, not just religion.
I'm glad we can help make your future job prospects that much worse.
Yeah, just one more link.
Yeah, right. Are you working on any other religion-based apps now? Is that where you go with your next project, or do you try something totally different?
Yeah, no, there's more that I could do to the current apps that I have that I just don't do because I'm just trying to, every extra day or hour that you spend on that thing that you don't want to do is just further down the rabbit hole, right? So it's like, this has been a great success, and I'm happy that it happened. But let's, I don't want to go any further in that direction, so I'm working on other projects. Yep.
Fantastic.
Wait, I know this is like a 10 minutes ago thing, but I want to go back to the Fox News morning thing. What did they say? Like, were they mad at you, or were they like? Because I feel like Fox News is super pro-business, so it should be like, oh, entrepreneur makes good. But like, did they have negative words for you?
Yeah, no, so if you want to put in the show notes, I can send the clip. But
I guess I could have watched that before this interview.
No, it's like hard to find. The only reason it's a long story, and I barely found it myself, so it is hard to find. But surprising. So they try and make it, it's Fox News and dramatic, and he's an atheist, he's a Bible, blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay. And then so thankfully at the end, the last 30 seconds is one guy. They're coming from the capitalist point of view where, he had a better product. He saw, opportunity in the market. And so that's kind of how they close out the segment for the most part. So I was, for considering that it was Fox News, I thought it went pretty well.
Good for them, I guess.
I've been interviewed a couple.
I guess.
I will say I've been interviewed a couple of times, not trying to brag, but
we get it,
I've been on
really
Fox News a couple of times, and they've treated me really well, but it's because the stories were more interesting, like a human interest story, than I'm the bad boogeyman sort of guy. And I would imagine if you're an atheist selling the Bible, they like you. They don't want to be mad at you. They wish more atheists. Yeah, exactly. You're selling what they like.
As long as they get, more advertisers and more page views, I guess it doesn't matter to them. I don't know. They didn't contact me about it at all. I literally got, an email from a friend saying, "Hey, I saw your face on Fox News this morning." I was like, "What? What are you talking about?"
That's always a good email.
Yeah. When first my heart dropped. I was like, "Oh my gosh, what did they say about me?" And then I eventually found it. It wasn't, and it was fine. But yeah,
good.
It was a fun little experience.
Trevor, thank you so much for joining us. We'll have links to your website and the app because I'm sure listeners want to download the Spanish language Bible.
Of course.
It's our biggest market.
It is. Yeah, you're reaching the right demographic here.
English atheists, yes.
Yes. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you to you guys. We'll see you.
Thanks for listening to the podcast for FriendlyAtheist.com. This episode was taped at Cinnamon Sound Studios in Aurora, Illinois, and the music was written and performed by Brad Chagdis. If you like what you're hearing, please consider making a contribution at patreon.com/Hemant, that's He-Man T. We appreciate your support. I'm Hemant Mehta.
And I'm Jessica Blumke. We hope you'll join us next time.